complete sentences, right? It's like, Bendis is a writer. Sentences have words in them, right? That makes sense. The end of a sentence, you know what I'm saying? But because it's Bendis, and in the end before we can get there, like what I'm saying is, oh, too late. The plot has moved on without me. The long wait is over. We finally have a new series from Brian Michael Bendis. It's been a while since we saw him on the racks, and he has teamed up once again with one of his favorite creators, Alex Maleev. Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev had a long, well-respected run on Daredevil that I myself haven't read yet, but I plan to get to at some point. And they also co-created the series Scarlet, which I own, but I haven't read yet. Full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of Bendis' writing style, but that doesn't mean it's impossible for me to enjoy a Bendis book. In fact, his run on New Avengers with artists such as David Finch and Steve McNiven was one of the series that taught me how to enjoy modern comic books instead of just stuff from the 80s. My hometown library had a hardcover copy of the first 10 issues, and I loved that book so much. I checked that baby out 4 or 5 times a year minimum. So like I said, sometimes I really like Bendis' writing, but other times it just wears on me the way he makes characters speak to each other. Ultimate Spider-Man is a really good example of this. Now this was a groundbreaking series, and it paved the way for a lot of new comic fans. But man, Bendis makes every teenager speak in the same voice, and everybody's interrupting each other, and they don't finish their sentences, and there's just excessive expletives all over the place. It's like nobody ever wants to finish a thought. And once in a while, having a character speak that way makes it feel more natural. It feels like you're actually watching a regular person speak. But everybody, oh! And the dialogue in this issue was very hard for me to get through without making that sound. Most of the time, it's just dialogue coming from teenagers in this book that makes me have that reaction. And not everybody in the book is a teenager. But even among the adults in this issue, sometimes their dialogue is just childish and uninteresting. It's like nobody is taking themselves seriously at any point in this issue. And I know that this main character, who's a teenage girl, is supposed to have a lot of moxie, and it even says in the blurb describing the comic that she's brilliant, but pretty much right away she just kind of comes off as a jerk. I mean, she talks back to everybody. Every single person. She's just rude and unlikable. And just based on the dialogue, it makes me feel like the teacher at the beginning is incompetent. The main villain is not scary because you won't shut up. And the main character's legal guardian is like borderline incompetent. Not in a like they're a failure at life kind of way. They just don't feel like a real person with responsibilities. Just a talking face. The only character that I'm interested in is this like steampunk Crimson Commando looking guy. There he is. Now you try telling me that's not a steampunk Crimson Commando looking guy. But then even he at the end ruins his whole mysterious allure by speaking way too much and being way too short-tempered and just annoying. Why can't Bendis just write characters that are confident in their sense of self and don't feel the need to be so reactive to everything all the time? Anyway, if we zoom back out and look at the issue as a whole, then the effect that I'm left with after reading it is similar to how I feel when I'm watching a binge-worthy TV show. Like, I want to watch the next episode, I want to know what happens next, but it's not because I'm really hooked, it's because it was basically junk food and I just want to keep eating the junk food. But it's not because the story has any kind of substance to it. Like, I'm not hooked by this story. I just feel like nothing happened in the first episode and I want to hurry up and get to the part where something happens. It goes really fast, so it feels like I didn't even see a full episode, so I feel like I need to watch another episode to make up for having not seen an episode. You know, it does have a pretty good cliffhanger. You're left with a lot of questions at the end. You want to figure some stuff out. You want to know who these people are. But, like I said, it's not exactly captivating. As far as the plot goes, it feels pretty familiar. This is a very comfortable narrative. Nothing about it is all that shocking or surprising. It doesn't strike me as unique pretty much anywhere in this story. I don't know why these FBI agents have to be such dickheads. It's never specifically stated how much money was stolen from the villain, but then he acts like this kid that he just kidnapped knows what number he has in his brain. So that felt like an oversight. And why does this old man want this kid to go and commit some kind of heist? Why does he think this random kid with no skills whatsoever is the perfect key to his master plan? That doesn't make any freaking sense. Honestly, it feels like Bendis wanted to insert his kid into a comic book and then have them go on adventures, which is wholesome, but it's also kind of a loose premise. I do like that the main character has this webcomic that she does, and we get to see a full page of that webcomic. That feels like pretty cool world building. It's a vivid character description moment. The webcomic itself is a little hard to look at and doesn't make a ton of sense sequentially, but it's made by a high schooler, so maybe that's the point. This is the kind of comic that I would like to buy the trade paperback version of and read all of it in one evening so that I can just get it done. Not a lot of substance here. I don't want to read this over the course of like 6 months. There's just not enough here here to keep me thinking about it until the next issue comes out. As for the art, I'm admittedly not a huge Alex Maleev fan either, but he has received quite a bit of critical acclaim. I think that in this issue in particular, he's kind of coming off as like a watered down, less emotive version of Chris Samney. Almost the entire time, the emotions that the characters have are not evident by their facial expressions or their body language. I mean, look at this teenage girl getting shoved into the wall by two big FBI agents. You see that face? That is a face of apathy. But her dialogue shows that she is clearly very excited by this whole thing. So why doesn't she look that way? And it's like that pretty much the whole issue. I never know what anybody is feeling, like the whole time. It doesn't help that Bendis' dialogue is so all over the place. It's not concise at all. So he throws a bunch of word bubbles in every panel, like he can't pick one specific moment to portray in each panel. If you have too many moments happening in one panel, if you have too many emotions happening in one panel, then it just doesn't come across effectively. You can't have one character having 3 or 4 emotions in one panel, because then none of those emotions get to be accurately represented, and even if you do accurately represent one of those emotions, then the other 2 or 3 are just gonna be, dismissed? So the sense of moment in this issue is not very strong. But it's not just Bendis' fault. There are a bunch of moments where I would have chosen a totally different shot for these panels. This page at the end, for example. In this panel up at the top right, the guy is totally chill, he's totally normal, he's dragging a body into a van and everything is fine. And then she says something that pisses him off, and it zooms way out in that middle left panel. It zooms way out while he yells at her so we can't see any evidence of his emotions. All of the emotional punch of that scene is lost because we've zoomed way the heck out. Why couldn't we have zoomed out in the next panel? Why don't we zoom in on his face so we could see how angry he was and then zoom out? Like, if you're gonna zoom out, why did you zoom out there? I don't know, every time there's a chance for a big emotional moment, he just takes all the wind out of it, so it has no impact. So, yeah, I guess I don't have that much positive to say about this issue. It's still Bendis, it's still Alex Maleev, so they're 2 creators who know what they're doing, and I suppose it wouldn't be unreasonable to hope that the series gets more captivating for me. So I'll probably keep buying it, but I've got to give it like a 6 out of 10. I just couldn't get immersed in it because the dialogue was so annoying, and the art was underwhelming, and the plot was not all that interesting. So I say 6 out of 10. Did you read it? What do you think? Today's question comes from ZIX08 3 exclamation points. And they want to know, is your refrigerator running?